One of the most heartbreaking conversations is with a woman who's been trying to conceive for months or even years and failed. She's been diagnosed with PMOS, polyendocrine metabolic ovarian syndrome, formerly known as PCOS. She's been prescribed medication. Sometimes she's already contemplating fertility meds or IVF. And somewhere in that conversation, she's told, you need to lose weight. But either because no one ever really explains to her why she needs to lose weight, or she's tried several methods to lose weight and failed, or in the process of prescribing so many medications and discussing potential interventions like IVF, the importance of losing that weight gets drowned out, and she never ever gets to lose that weight at all. And that is very unfortunate. Because if she could only understand why losing weight is so important, it could completely change the way she thinks about PMOS and what her potential outcomes could be. My name is Dr. Etuket, the founder of Vigorize, where we help people take control of their blood sugar and maximize their energy without having to depend on medication. Today, I'm going to discuss with you this condition, PMOS, which is actually more linked to type 2 diabetes than many people actually think. Here, let me show you. In the normal menstrual cycle, the brain is going to release a hormone called follicle-stimulating hormone, or in short, FSH, which is going to stimulate the follicles. Now, the follicles are the functional units of the ovary. So, follicles. It's going to stimulate those follicles to grow and to mature. Now, as these follicles grow and mature, they are going to start releasing or producing hormones. They actually produce androgens. Androgens are male hormones. Yes, a woman's ovaries do not just produce the female hormones. They produce the male hormones first, and then under the action of an enzyme called aromatase, they get converted to estrogens, which are female hormones. These estrogens further contribute to the maturation and the development of the follicles. As these follicles continue to grow and produce more and more estrogens, the high level of estrogens is going to suppress the hormone FSH, which was stimulating the follicles to grow. The high estrogen levels suppressing the levels of FSH is going to arrest the development of the follicles, except for one follicle which emerges as the dominant follicle. So it's the one which grows and matures the most. This dominant follicle will continue to produce estrogens for a sustained amount of time, so 36 to 48 hours. This sustained release of estrogens by the dominant follicle is going to stimulate the brain to release another hormone called luteinizing hormone, or simply LH. And that surge in the levels of LH is going to cause the dominant follicle to release its egg, what is called ovulation. This egg may or may not go on to be fertilized by a sperm. So this is the normal menstrual cycle. So what happens in PMOS? In PMOS, the woman's pancreas is producing lots of insulin. So the levels of insulin in the blood are high. The main reason this happens is because of eating the wrong food. So lots of carbohydrates, especially refined carbohydrates. If you're doing this for months and years, this is what happens. High insulin levels cause the woman to store fat. First, she stores fat under her skin. But if she continues eating the wrong types of food, insulin levels continue to be chronically elevated, she's going to start storing that fat around her intestines, what is called visceral fat. And it's the visceral fat which is going to cause insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is a condition where one's cells do not respond well to insulin, and therefore the levels of glucose in their blood start to rise. This is why many women who have PMOS and do a blood sugar test actually find that they're either pre-diabetic or even diabetic. In an attempt to overcome this insulin resistance, the woman's pancreas is going to produce more insulin, and therefore insulin resistance actually causes chronically elevated levels of insulin. So it's a vicious cycle. High insulin is causing insulin resistance, and worsening insulin resistance is further increasing the levels of insulin in the blood. So let's go back to the high insulin. These high insulin levels are going to act on the follicles to cause them to produce more androgens, more of the male hormone. So the levels of the male hormone in the woman are going to be high. High androgen levels is the first hallmark feature of PMOS, and it presents as a woman having coarse hair in places where men typically have the hair. So she's having beard, she could have a mustache, she could have very hairy arms, she could also have very hairy legs. Now, I'm not saying that all ladies who have hair in these places have PMOS. Please don't misquote me. Also, the woman may have male pattern balding. Male balding. So you may have the woman having thinning or even loss of hair around this region, which is typical for men who are balding. Alright, so moving on. The high level of androgens is going to cause an abnormal environment within the follicles. And this will result in many of these follicles growing and maturing, but none of them ever breaking into that stage of the dominant follicle. If this woman does an ultrasound of her ovaries, particularly a transvaginal ultrasound, it will be noted that there are many follicles within the ovary. These are normally reported as cysts. Hence, the former name of this condition being polycystic ovary syndrome. Poly, many, cystic, cysts, ovary, of course. Yes, so many cysts within the ovary. And that is the second feature of PMOS. Multiple follicles. Again, as I said, they're normally reported as cysts on the ultrasound. Further still, since a dominant follicle hardly ever emerges from the many follicles within the ovaries, ovulation rarely occurs or even never occurs. And therefore, this woman has irregular or absent periods. And that forms the third feature of PCOS. Irregular or absent periods. Now, these three features: 1, the higher androgens, which result in the coarse hair and the male pattern balding; 2, the multiple follicles or cysts seen on the ultrasound; and 3, irregular or absent periods, form what is called the Rotterdam criteria. If 2 or more of these criteria are present within a woman, then a diagnosis of PMOS is made. Therefore, as you can see, not all women with PMOS will have multiple cysts present in their ovaries when they have an ultrasound done. As long as the other 2 criteria are present, the diagnosis of PMOS can still be made. And also, it doesn't mean because a woman is having regular periods that she doesn't have PMOS. Therefore, a woman who suspects this should be evaluated properly by her gynecologist. Don't try to figure it out by yourself. Quick interruption. If you're finding value in this video, then click the thumbs up icon just below and hit the subscribe button so that YouTube can know that this is valuable content and share it to many more people. Let's help spread the message of good health. Alright, back to the video. Now, this brings us to the treatment of PMOS. Many gynecologists will recommend that these women have to lose weight because, as you can see, weight gain is part of the process of development of the condition. When it comes to weight loss, some women will try lifestyle modification. So doing more exercise, trying to eat well, and then trying to manage their stress. Others will take it further to things like doing fasting, juicing, taking certain supplements. Some will even go to use drugs like the GLP-1 receptor agonists, things like Ozempic, Mounjaro, Zepbound, Wegovy. Others will try bariatric surgeries, for example, a procedure called the gastric sleeve. There are many methods that people choose to use to try and lose weight, but not all of them are right, and some of them are actually harmful. I've talked about this in a previous video, so I will not delve into this. I'll leave a card maybe somewhere up here, or I'll drop a link to that video in the description. You can watch it after this video. Now, many of the other fertility drugs which are used to treat PCOS work either at the brain or at the ovaries to alter the levels of the different hormones, FSH, the androgens, in a way that will make ovulation more likely to happen. Some drugs help the brain to release hormones which will stimulate ovulation. Examples of these drugs include letrozole and clomiphene citrate. These drugs are normally given as oral formulations. However, if they don't work, injections containing the drugs FSH and LH can be used to stimulate the ovaries directly to induce ovulation. Other drugs can be given to suppress androgen production. The drugs used here are the combined oral contraceptive pills. Other drugs can be used to suppress the effects of the androgens on other tissues like the skin. For example, a drug called spironolactone. And then a drug called Metformin is used to improve insulin sensitivity. If a number of these drugs have been tried and yet the woman still isn't ovulating, she's still failing to conceive, that is when considerations can be made for other interventions like IVF. So this is where fertilization is artificially induced in the laboratory. Needless to say, these drugs come at a cost and with various side effects, and IVF particularly is very expensive and is not guaranteed to work. But most importantly, none of these interventions is addressing the root cause, which is the high insulin levels, majorly caused by eating the wrong type of food. So even if they may provide some relief to the woman, they're not doing it in an efficient way. The example I usually give is that it's like trying to prune the branches of a tree rather than cut the tree at the root. I hope you can begin to appreciate the diverse problems that can happen in a woman when she has PMOS, and the various drugs that get prescribed in an attempt to solve these issues. Research has shown that in many women, losing just 5 to 10% of their weight can drastically improve insulin sensitivity and improve her chances of ovulating and hence getting pregnant. I've seen this in my own practice. One particular lady I worked with had not been experiencing periods for months. She lost 5 kilograms in 3 weeks of us working together, and she conceived, after trying for years without success. Another lady who I worked with had not experienced her periods in 4 months, but after just 1 month of eating the right kind of food and doing the right kind of exercise, managing her stress levels, she reported having her period. And this was not just a one-off. 1 month later, she had her period again, right on schedule. Another lady who I worked with a couple of years ago was severely overweight. She tried several things to lose the weight, but it kept going and coming back. She was also diagnosed with PCOS. By us working together, she was able to lose over 30 kilograms and manage her symptoms without having to use medication. These are individual experiences, and every woman is different, but they illustrate what is possible when a woman's underlying metabolic health improves by her addressing the main root cause, which is insulin resistance and chronically elevated levels of insulin. It's about giving the woman the best possible chance of reversing PMOS. Let me ask you something. If you're a woman with PMOS and you've spent a year or 2 or even more trying to conceive without success, maybe even considering IVF, would it be a horrible idea to spend the next 3 to 6 months working on lowering your insulin levels and reversing insulin resistance? Would it be an absolute waste of time if you were able to lose 10% or more of your weight the right way, that is, a way that is natural and sustainable? If there's a chance that your periods could resume and become regular again, would it be a total waste of time to explore that option? If there's a chance you could avoid fertility meds and IVF, would you hate yourself for trying? If for you, the answer to any of these questions is no, then you have 2 options. Option 1 is if you don't want to waste time trying to figure out things by yourself, but you'd rather have structured, personalized support guiding you each step of the way, then click the link in the description section below, which will take you to a page where you can fill in a brief application, which I will review myself, and then reach out to you telling you about what your next steps are. Option 2, you want to go at it by yourself. Click the link right about here, which will take you to a video where I explain our 3-step system, which has helped tens to hundreds of our clients lose weight, maximize their energy, and reverse insulin resistance. All right, speak soon.